Happy Saturday, everyone. Attendance, mag-ano lang ako. Inom ng sige, dito muna tayo sa ba yung title ko. One Samuel. One Samuel ba? Mami, nahanap ko yung live mo asaan. Kailang magtimpla ako nito, di pa ako kumain, naglaba ako eh. Di ka nag-live, mami. Nahanap ko live mo, wala. Mami, punta ka sa ano? Okay. Diyan ka pala sa ano. Ala, nakalimutan ko. Ano nga yung April 2. Di pa ako kumain. Sana yung ano. Timpla lang ako nito. Tapos ito lang ulam. Ay, teka lang. Nag-umpisa na pala si Samuel.
But unto Hannah, the first book of Samuel.
First book of
Otherwise called
Samuel.
the first book of the Kings.
First book of Samuel.
Chapter 1. Hannah prays for a son and vows to give him to the Lord. Eli the priest blesses her. Samuel is born. Hannah loans him to
Dinig
the
ba
Lord.
ako? Dali.
Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim, of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Eliakim, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, and Ephrathite. And he had 2 wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah
Meron
had
pa
no children.
akong
And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters portions. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved her. But the Lord had shut up her womb. And her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb. And as he did so year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, so she provoked her. Therefore she went and did not eat. Then said Elkanah her husband to her, Hannah, why weepest thou? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am not I better to thee than 10 sons? So Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli the priest sat upon a seat by a post in the temple of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul,
Ay, to
and prayed
Samuel
unto the
pala
Lord,
yun.
and wept sore. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and
Ito
remember
Samuel.
me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine
So
handmaid a
2
man
Samuel,
child,
ano pala
then
tayo?
I will give him unto the Lord all the day.
2 Samuel 20, ay 1 Samuel 23. Sa 23 na pala yun. Kahapon hanggang 22. 1 Samuel 23. Ayan, dito tayo.
Down into a rock and abode in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. And Saul went on this side of the mountain, and David and his men on that side of the mountain. And David made haste to get away for fear of Saul. For Saul and his men compassed David and his men round about to take them. But there came a messenger unto Saul, saying, Haste thee, and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Wherefore Saul returned from pursuing after David, and went against the Philistines. Therefore they called that place Selah Amalekite. And David went up from thence, and dwelt in strongholds at En-gedi.
Chapter 24. David finds Saul in a cave and spares his life. Saul confesses that David is more righteous than he. David swears that he will not cut off the seed of Saul.
And it came to pass, when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel, and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave. And Saul went in to cover his feet, and David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. And the men of David said unto him, Behold the day in which the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose, and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. And it came to pass afterward, that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. And he said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed his servants with these words, and suffered them not to rise against Saul. But Saul rose up out of the cave, and went on his way. David also arose afterward, and went out of the cave, and cried after Saul, saying, My lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David stood with his face to the earth, and bowed himself. And David said to Saul, Wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, Behold, David seeketh thy hurt. Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord had delivered thee today into mine hand in the cave. And some bade me kill thee, but mine eye spared me. And I said, I will not put forth mine hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, see, yea, see the skirt of thy robe in my hand. For in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe, and killed thee not, know thou and see, that there is neither evil nor transgression in mine hand, and I have not sinned against thee. Yet thou huntest my soul to take it.
Maring
The Lord judge between
harang.
me and
Wait
thee,
lang luto
and the
lang.
Lord avenge me on thee. But mine hand shall
Eggnog.
not be upon thee. As saith the proverb of the ancients,
Luto lang
wickedness
akong
proceedeth from the
eggnog.
wicked,
Asan mo
but
yan?
mine hand shall not be upon thee.
Sipit ko.
After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue?
Nakita mo dyan pa?
After a dead dog, after a flea. The Lord therefore be judge, and judge between me and thee, and see and plead my cause,
Kahit
and
nandyan
deliver me
yung
out of
sipit
thine
ko
hand.
na.
And it came to pass, when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice, and wept. And he said to David, Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. And thou hast showed this day how that thou hast dealt well with me. Forasmuch as when the Lord had delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Wherefore the Lord reward thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now Behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. Swear now therefore unto me by the Lord, that thou wilt not cut off my seed after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home. But David and his men gat him up unto the hold.
Chapter
Sa tingin
25.
kami, ano pa, nabiyahe.
Ewan ko anak, wala akong mabibigay siyempre ha.
Nabal rebuffs David and refuses to
Kasi
give him food.
hindi pa pwedeng hindi ka lalakad na walang
Abigail
pera.
intercedes,
Pero ko,
saves
Meron ka?
Nabal, and gives
Sige,
David a
pautang ako.
present.
tingin kami nung nabiyahe.
David is pacified.
Pautang ako sandaan.
Nabal dies,
Gusto rin
and
kami.
David marries Abigail.
Oo nga.
And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together, and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose, and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Maon, whose possessions were and Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep, and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing the sheep
Kagabi lang
in Carmel.
binalita yung may
Now the
na-scam
name
dyan
of
sa
the man
bit,
was Nabal,
crypto,
and the name of
crypto,
his wife Abigail.
Kagabi,
And she was a woman of good understanding,
may
and of a
na-scam na
beautiful
naman.
countenance. But the
Sa
man was
Bitcoin.
churlish and evil in his doings,
Crypto,
and he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men. And David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the
Kagabi lang
while
ulat.
they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore, let the young men find favor in thy eyes. For we come in a good day, give I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants, and to thy son David. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, Who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? So David's young men turned away and went again, and came and told him all those sayings. And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them, when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us, both by night and day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore, know and consider what thou wilt do. For evil is determined against our master, and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial, that a man cannot speak to him. Then Abigail made haste, and took 200 loaves, and 2 bottles of wine, and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said unto her servants, Go on before me. Behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill. And behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now David had said,
Kaling nga ma.
Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him. And he hath requited me evil for good.
Focus ako.
So, or also to God unto the enemies of
Masariwa
David,
pa naman
if
pwede
I
ko.
leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light, and he that pisseth against the wall.
Bili tayo papaya
And
pero
when Abigail saw David, she hasted,
kukuhain ko pa
and
yung
lighted
pera
off
kay
the ass,
Travis
and
eh.
fell before David on her face,
Nabunuhan ko
and
yung
bowed
ano,
herself to the ground, and fell at
200
his feet, and
plus.
said, Upon me, my lord,
Yung
upon me
pambili
let this
ulam
iniquity
mo.
be,
Ang pera.
and let thine handmaid, I pray
Bibili ko
thee,
na siya.
speak in thine audience. hear the words of thine
Inayad ko
handmaid.
din.
Let not my lord, I pray thee, regard this man of
Sa
Belial,
kuryente
even
bala,
Nabal.
mangutang ko
For
kay
as
ate.
his name is, so is he.
Kaya di naman
Nabal is his
madaya.
name, and folly is with him. But I thine handmaid saw not the young
Ay,
men of my lord, whom thou didst
kabayad
send.
agad siya.
Now therefore, my lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from
Kain
coming to
tayo.
shed blood,
Buti na
and from
sisingin mo pa
avenging
yun.
thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies, and they that seek evil to my lord, be as Nabal. And now this blessing which
Babawi
thine
na lang
handmaid
ako pag
hath brought
may
unto my
revenue.
lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my lord. I pray
Wala.
thee, forgive the
Hindi
trespass of
naman
thine
ako
handmaid.
tulog yan
For the
mga
Lord will
bata.
certainly make my Lord a sure house.
Hindi mo na kailangan
Because my
obligan
Lord
siguro kung
fighteth the
bayaran mo.
battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days.
Hayaan mo lang
Yet a
muna.
man is
Kasi
risen to
wala pa
pursue
naman
thee,
ako
and
kaya
to
ng
seek thy
time.
soul.
Hindi
The
naman
soul
natin
of my
kaya
Lord shall be
bayaran.
bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God,
Babawi mo ako
and
pag
the
may
souls of thine
revenue na,
enemies,
mag-antay
them
ka.
shall he slay out,
Hindi,
as out of the
hindi
middle of
nga
a sling.
obligasyon. Isa naman
And it
na
shall come to pass,
yaya na
when the Lord shall have done
magkabit,
to
di
my
ba?
Lord according to all the good that he hath spoken concerning thee, and shall have
Kahit na,
appointed
Para
sigado
thee
kung
saan?
ayoko
over
ng bayaran
Israel,
niya.
that this
Hindi
shall be
naman
no grief
nagagamit mga
unto
anak ko
thee,
dyan.
nor offensive heart unto my
Magawa
Lord,
ka pa.
either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged himself. For when the Lord shall have
Ito
dealt
naman
well
gusto
with my Lord,
magpakabit niyan.
then remember thine hand.
Itas
David
yung mga
said to
bata.
Abigail, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent
Ayaw
thee this
naman
day
na
to
dyan
meet me.
mga tira.
Blessed be thy
Yan palang
advice,
maglaba.
and blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with mine own hand. For in verity, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hadst hasted to come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light
Paupahan.
any that pisseth against the
Pangit
wall.
magpaupa kasi
So David received of her
walang
hand
titulo
that
to.
which she had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace
Nasa
to
lab
thine
ako.
house.
May
See,
pagkikitaan
I
mo,
have
ba't nga
hearkened to
sila
thy
dati,
voice,
wala
and
naman
have accepted
ganyan,
thy
may mga
person.
yan, tutulog
And
ba yung mga
Abigail
yan,
came to
wala naman
Nabal,
ganyan mo yan,
and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a
mga
king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass, about 10 days after, that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died.
Sabi mo kasi
And
doon
when
na,
David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the
doon yung
Lord,
bali na.
that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the
So,
hand of Nabal,
lumabas na ako din
and hath kept his
nagsabi.
servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal
Dahil sa
upon
kabata
his
yung
own
lumabas
head.
kanina.
Ha?
David sent, and
Nakita na
Binili
lumabas
ko
yung
to eh.
niyo.
to take unto him to wife.
Sardinas.
And when the servants of
Hindi,
David
may
were come
sardinas
to
dyan.
Abigail to Carmel, they
Hindi,
spake
may
unto
isa
her,
pa din
saying,
rose bowl.
David sent us unto thee, to take thee to him to wife. And she arose, and bowed herself on her face to the earth, and said, Behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. And Abigail hasted, and arose and rode upon an ass, with 5 damsels of hers that went after her. And she went after the messengers of
Sabi
David,
ko kanin,
and
ayaw mo
became
kong
his
bigyan.
wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel. They were also both of them his
Sa'yo na
wives.
yan. Wala akong kanin
But
dito.
Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Gallo.
Hello, hello.
Mas
Chapter
pala.
26.
Nag-meeting
David
pala
again
siya.
spares Saul's life. He again refuses to stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed. Saul and David separate.
And the Ziphites came unto Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshimon? Then Saul arose, and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul pitched in the hill of
Matagal na yung
Hachilah,
internet.
which is
Kawalan, di ba?
before Jeshimon by the way. But David abode in the wilderness, and he
Wilderness?
saw that Saul came after him
Kawalan?
into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies, and understood that Saul was come in very deed. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. And David beheld the place where Saul lay, and Abner the son of Ner, the captain of his host.
Saan mo
And
narinig?
Saul lay in the trench, and the people pitched round about him. Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother to Joab, saying,
Yeah.
Who
Bakit
will
ka
go down
naman?
with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. So David and Abishai came to the people by night. And behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. But Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear, even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time. And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not. For who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed, and be guiltless? David said furthermore, As the Lord liveth,
Samuel.
the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. But I pray thee, take that now the spear that is at his bolster, and the cruse
English
of water,
kasi ang hirap
and let us go.
intindihin.
So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they gat them away.
20.
And no man saw it, nor knew it, neither awaked. For they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. Then David went over to the other side, and stood on the
Wala,
top
di
of
pa
an
pala
hill
ako
afar
nag-share.
off, a great space being between them. And David cried to the people, and to Abner, the son of Ner, saying, Answerest thou not, Abner?
26.
Then Abner answered and said, Who art thou that criest to the
Share ko
king?
pa pala.
And David said to Abner, Art not thou a valiant man? And who is like to thee in Israel?
So
Wherefore
ano,
then hast thou
darating ng
not kept thy
AdSense
lord
pin
the
ko.
king?
AdSense pin na lang.
For there came one of the people
Pag
in
may
to
kumatok
destroy
ka,
the king thy lord.
mag-address
This
ka
thing
sa
is not
bahay.
good that thou hast
Doon
done.
naka-address sa
The Lord
kalating.
liveth, ye are worthy to die,
Madali. Yung sa
because ye
pin
have
ko.
not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the cruse of water that was at his bolster. And Saul knew David's voice, and said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And David said, It is my voice,
Ilagay mo na
my
dun
lord
sa
the
ano,
king.
pandagdag.
And he said, Wherefore doth my lord thus pursue after his servant? For what have I done? Or what evil is in mine hand?
Bless you,
Now
bless
therefore I
you.
pray thee, let my lord the king hear the words of his servant.
Ano pa?
If the Lord has stirred thee up against
Kasi
me,
yung
let him
pinto ko
accept
dito,
an
ma.
offering.
Diyan.
But if they be the children of
Tabi
men,
mo.
cursed be they before the Lord. For they have driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go, serve other gods. Now therefore, let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord. For the king of Israel is come out to seek a flea, as when one doth hunt a partridge in the mountains. Then said Saul, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will no more do thee harm,
Boom.
because my soul was precious in thine eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool, and have erred exceedingly.
Kain na.
David answered and said,
Kain na po. May nakubiling lutuudan
And let
doon
one of the
kay
young
Ate
men come over
Susan.
and fetch it.
Punta ako
The
kay
Lord
Travis.
render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I would not stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed.
Akin.
And behold, as thy life was much
May
set
pera
by
ka ba?
this day in mine eyes,
Papa mo may
so let
baril.
my life
Madami
be much
baril.
set by in the eyes of the
Favorite
Lord,
ko.
and let him deliver
Oo.
me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt both do
Kailangan
great
din naman
things,
nila
and
yung
also
baril.
shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place.
Chapter 27. David flees to Achish at Gath. He dwells among the Philistines for 16 months.
And David said in his heart,
Kasi
I shall
ay.
now perish one day by the hand of
RC
Saul.
daw.
There is nothing better for me than that I should sneak
Ano?
and escape into the land of the Philistines.
Ano sabi mo pa?
But Saul shall despair of me
Ay.
to seek me any
Sa-
more in any coast of
Ayun
Israel.
dyan na. Lumabas na.
So shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were
Punta
with
daw
him
sa CR.
unto Achish, the son of Baal, king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household.
Punta daw sa
Even
CR.
David with his two wives, Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee?
Dali.
Then Achish gave him
Dali
Ziklag
lang mag
that day.
Kwan
Wherefore
lang ko
Ziklag
share.
pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day.
Kamusta ka na?
And the time when David dwelt in
Ah,
the country of the
pakain.
Philistines was a full year and
Kain lang ako sisi,
and David and his men went
sardinas,
up
tsaka
and invaded the Geshurites and the
mamaya bilan
Geshurites
ako
and
bibili
the
kay Ate
Amalekites.
Susan ng
For those nations
ulam,
were
yung
the inhabitants of the land,
yung
as thou
inabuno
goest
ko.
ashore, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and went
Sardinas
neither
lang
man
tsaka
nor woman alive,
itlog.
and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel.
Kain lang kami.
Returned and came to Achish. And Achish
Ganyan
said,
talaga ang
Whither have ye made a
studio.
road today?
Ang studio ay
And David
lamisa.
said,
Papa.
Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the
Butan mo isa.
Jeroboamites, and against the south of the Kenites.
Oh, ganda
And
niya.
David saved neither man nor woman alive,
Ang tinga
to
lang.
bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David.
Mag-modules
And
pa
so
na lang
be
may
his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country
may
of
ano
the
pa dyan.
Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying,
Ay, wait lang.
Hath
Busy
made
sa
his people
kainan.
Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever.
Chapter 28. Saul inquires of the witch of Endor for revelation. She foretells his death, the death of his sons, and the defeat of Israel by the Philistines.
And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that
Ay,
thou shalt
thank
go
you,
out with me to
Lord.
battle, thou and thy men.
Busog na yun.
And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of my head forever. Now
Tapos,
Samuel was dead,
pandesal
and
milk.
all Israel had lamented him, and buried him in Ramah,
Busog,
even in
sarap.
his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together, and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together.
Sana ba ito? 1 Samuel
And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart
23.
greatly trembled.
Chapter
And when Saul
23 na
inquired
to.
of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams,
Kasi
nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Then said Saul unto
clip
his
lang
servants,
yung ano.
Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and
Clip
inquire.
lang yung gamit ko.
And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul
Si
disguised
Mami nasa
himself,
church.
and put
Ay,
on the
Sabado
ring.
kasi
And he went,
ngayon.
and two men with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee.
Kain ka. Si Tradis tapos na
Behold, thou
kumain
knowest
na.
what Saul had done, how he had cut off those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of
Teka
the
lang,
land.
share ko lang sa ano.
Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life,
Sa
to cause me
Facebook.
to die?
Yung sa'yo,
And Saul sware to
naringling
him
na
by the Lord,
share ko
saying,
na sa
As the Lord
Facebook.
liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall
Sarap
I bring
yung
up
rose
unto
bowl.
thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel.
May sardinas pa
And
doon
when the
ako.
woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice.
Ibasan mo
And the
lang.
woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me?
Wala na, Simon.
And the king said unto her,
Tatlo
Be not
kami
afraid.
sa isang sardinas kumain si
And the woman said
Mister
unto Saul,
ako tsaka
I
anak
saw
ko.
gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her,
Nagkasya yun.
What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground,
Nagkasya
and
ano.
bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me, to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do.
Wait lang ha,
Then
i-share
said
ko lang.
Samuel, Wherefore
Naku,
then dost thou
naka-LS
ask of
din
me,
siya. No?
seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. because thou obeyedst not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day.
28 na.
Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines.
Ay, dapat
And
ito.
tomorrow shalt thou and thy
Mabilis
sons be
ko.
with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines.
Ay, mali.
Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth,
Hindi
and
ko
was sore
na-delete.
afraid, because of the words of Samuel.
Ay, mali.
And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. And the woman came
May
unto
yellow
Saul,
dollar sign
and
na
saw
naman
that he was
ako
sore
dyan.
troubled, and said unto
Ay,
him,
may na.
Behold, thine
Laki
handmaid
akong
hath obeyed thy words, and
yellow
I have
dollar
put my
sign.
life in my hand, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou spakest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto
Kaya
the voice of
ganyan
thy
na lang
handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread
ano ko
before thee,
kay
and eat,
sa
that thou mayest
music.
have strength when thou goest on thy way. But he refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants, together with the
Ano
woman,
gusto mo?
got him, and he
Inumin mo na
hearkened
lang.
unto their voice.
May
So he
Milo.
arose from the earth, and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat
Ganyan
calf
to.
in the house, and she
Tatapos
hasted
na
and
ako.
killed it, and took flour, and kneaded it, and did bake
Dito
leavened
na
bread
ito.
thereof. And she brought it before Saul, and before his servants, and they did eat.
Ako yung
Then
kape
they
ng
rose
ilong
up,
ko.
and went away that night.
Chapter 29. Israel and the Philistines gather for war. The Philistine princes send David away.
Now the Philistines gathered together all their armies to Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain, which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds, and by thousands. But David and his men passed on in the rearward with Achish. Then said the princes of the Philistines, What do these Hebrews here? And Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, Is not this David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which hath been with me these days or these years? And I have found no fault in him since he fell unto me unto this day. And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him. And the princes of the Philistines said unto him, Make this fellow return, that he may go again to his place which thou hast appointed him, and let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself unto his master? Should it not be with the heads of these men? Is not this David, of whom they sang one to another in dances, saying, Saul slew his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Then Achish called David and said unto him, Surely, as the Lord liveth, thou hast been upright, and thy going out and thy coming in with me in the host is good in my sight. For I have not found evil in thee since the day of thy coming unto me unto this day. Nevertheless, the Lord's favour thee not. Wherefore now return, and go in peace, that thou displease not the lords of the Philistines. And David said unto Achish, But what have I done? And what hast thou found in thy servant, so long as I have been with thee unto this day, that I may not go fight against the enemies of my lord the king? And Achish answered and said to David, I know that thou art good in my sight, as an angel of God. Notwithstanding, the princes of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us to the battle. Wherefore now rise up early in the morning, with thy master's servants that are come with thee. And as soon as ye be up early in the morning, and have light, depart. So David and his men rose up early to depart in the morning, to return into the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel.
Wag! Bakit?
Chapter 30.
Wag, alis ako
The
lasing.
Amalekites spoil
Ay, na,
Ziklag
saglit
and the
lang
borders
eh.
of Judah.
Magbabalat lang ako eh.
At
David
dito lang
smites
sa
Amalek
ugangan.
and regains and
Hindi,
divides the
magbabalat
sword.
ka kasi manonood
And it came to
ako.
pass, when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day,
Hindi,
that
sige.
the Amalekites had invaded the
Anuhan
south,
mo lang.
and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with
Medyo
fire,
unti yung volume
and
lang.
had
Ito
taken
na ang
the
volume
women
ako.
captives that were therein. They slew
Malakas
not
nga
any,
kasi.
either great or small, but carried them away,
Ayan, okay na
and
yan.
went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold,
Ilagay mo na
the
to.
fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were
Sandali
taken
lang, wala
captives.
pa akong isang oras.
Then
Oh.
David and the people that were with
Lagay
him
mo na
lifted
doon.
up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep.
Umanood
And
ka
David's
na.
2 wives were taken captives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite.
Gitara
And
okay
David
lang.
was greatly distressed,
Hindi,
for the
wala
people spake of
nang
stoning him,
string
because the soul of all the people was grieved,
Wala akong
every man for his
magigitara.
sons
So
and for his
order ka
daughters.
nga.
But David encouraged himself
Oh.
in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar
Ano
the
naman
priest,
kantay eh.
Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David. And David inquired at the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and the 600 men that were with him, and came to the brook Besor, where those that were left behind stayed. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 abode behind, which were so faint that they could not go over the brook Besor. And they found an Egyptian in the field, and brought him to David, and gave him bread, and he did eat, and they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of a cake of figs, and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him, for he had eaten no bread, or drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. And David said unto him, To whom belongest thou? And whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite. And my master left me, because 3 days agone I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of the Kerethites, and upon the coast which belongeth to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, Canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, Swear unto me by God, that thou wilt neither kill me, nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. And when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon all the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil that they had taken out of the land of the Philistines, and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from the twilight even unto the evening of the next day. And there escaped not a man of them, save 400 young men, which rode upon camels, and fled. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives. And there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil, nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. And David took all the flocks and the herds which they drave before those other cattle, and said, This is David's spoil. And David came to the 200 men, which were so faint that they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Besor. And they went forth to meet David, and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them. Then answered all the wicked men and men of Belial, of those that went with David, and said, Because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoil that we have recovered, save to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then said David, Ye shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord hath given us, who hath preserved us, and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. For who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall part alike. And it was so from that day forward, that he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel unto this day. And when David came to Ziklag, he sent of the spoil unto the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, Behold a present for you of the spoil of the enemies of the Lord, to them which were in Bethel, and to them which were in Samarem, and to them which were in Jater, and to them which were in Harod, and to them which were in Siphon, and to them which were in Eshtemoa, and to them which were in Rechob, and to them which were in the cities of the
Ito na lang,
Jerahmeelites,
Beth.
and to them which were in the cities of the Kenites, and to them which were in Hormah, and to them which were in Horesha, and to them which were in Athak, and to them which were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men were wont to haunt.
Chapter 31. The Philistines defeat Israel. Saul and his 3 sons are slain. Their bodies are retrieved by the Gileadites and burned.
Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines, and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons, And the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab
Ay,
and
nabasa.
Malchishua, Saul's sons.
Ay, hindi
And the
ano.
battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Then said Saul unto his armor-bearer, Draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor-bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. And when his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword, and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor-bearer, and all his men, that same day together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and
Bakit?
fled. And the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head, and stripped off his armor, and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols, and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose, and went all night, and took the body of Saul, and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan, and came to Jabesh, and burnt them there. And they took their bones, and buried them under a tree at Jabesh, and fasted 7 days. The second book of Samuel, otherwise called the second book of the Kings.
Chapter 1. David learns of the death of Saul and Jonathan. He slays the
Magluto
Amalekite who
ng
claims to have
mojo.
killed Saul. David laments the
Bili
passing
ako
of Saul
na.
and Jonathan with a song.
Now it came
Crispy
to pass after
fry.
the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and
Walang
David had
di pa
abode
tapos
2
yan.
days in Ziklag, it came even to pass on
Kay
the 3rd
mami,
day,
guto.
that behold, a man came out of the camp from
Guto
Saul,
channel ni
with his
mami.
clothes rent, and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to
Iba
David,
na ano
that he
na
fell
ni
to the
mami
earth,
ang
and did obeisance. And David said unto him,
yung
From
thumbnail
whence
lang
comest
ng
thou?
ano ni
And
mama.
he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel am I escaped.
Nagdoble
David said
pala
unto him,
yung sakat.
How went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. And David said unto the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and called unto me. And I answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. He said unto me again, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept, and fasted until even, for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said unto him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? Then David called one of the young men and said, Go near, and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul, and over Jonathan his son. Also he bade them teach the children of Judah the use use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher, the beauty of Israel is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Tell it not in Gath. Publish it not in the streets of Ascalon.
Oo,
Lest the
tanggalan mo
daughters of the
yung
Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty is vilely cast away, the shield of Saul, as though he had not been anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned not back,
Tanggalan mo
and the
na.
sword of Saul returned not empty. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and
Ay,
in their
sira
death
na to.
they were not
Sayang.
divided.
Wag mo din na dito.
They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than
Hindi
lions.
ko.
Ye daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in
Mura lang yan.
scarlet with other
50
delights,
ang
who
kilo.
put on ornaments of gold upon your apparel. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of the battle? O Jonathan, thou wast slain in thine high places. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. How are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished.
Chapter 2. David is anointed king over the house of Judah. Ishbosheth becomes the king of Israel. David's followers defeat Abner and the men of Israel.
And it came to pass after this, that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up. And David said, Whither shall I go up? And he said, Unto Hebron. So David went up thither, and his two wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, Nabal's wife, the Carmelite. And his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household. And they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, that the men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. And David sent messengers unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, and said unto them, Blessed be ye of the Lord, that ye have showed this kindness unto your Lord, even unto Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord show kindness and truth unto you. And I also will requite you this kindness, because ye have done this thing. Therefore now let your hands be strengthened, and be ye valiant. For your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. And Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, Let the young men now arise, and play before us. And Joab said, Let them arise. Then there arose and went over by number 12 of Benjamin, which pertained to Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. And they caught every one his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in his fellow's side. So they fell down together. Wherefore that place was called Helkath Hazarim, which is in Gibeon. And there was a very sore battle that day. And Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel, before the servants of David.